Good morning, everyone. Have you ever been surprised, maybe even shocked by someone's true character? Someone you thought you knew. Maybe it was a friend, a leader, or someone you admired from a distance. And then one moment, one decision, or one crisis peeled back the layers and you saw something real, something undeniable. When we talk about character, we often think about the big moments, the speeches, the grand gestures, the well-crafted words. But real character isn't revealed in the spotlight. It's in the small, seemingly insignificant interactions that most people overlook. And one of the clearest windows into a person's soul is how they treat those who hold no power over them. Think about it. It's easy to be kind, respectful, and attentive to a boss, a mentor, or someone we admire. There's something to gain in those interactions: approval, status, opportunities. But what about the people who can do absolutely nothing for us? The cashier at the grocery store, the janitor at the office, the Uber driver, the person cleaning tables at a fast food restaurant. How someone treats these individuals who society often deems invisible says more about their heart than anything else. Some people walk through the world as if certain humans exist in the background, as if they're merely extras in the movie of their own life. They don't make eye contact with the server at a restaurant. They don't say thank you when someone holds the door. They grow impatient when an elderly person takes too long at the checkout line. And then there are the ones who do more than just acknowledge, who see people, who make them feel valued, who understand that dignity is not something you earn, but something every human deserves. You can witness this dynamic in everyday life if you pay attention. A person in a position of power speaks differently to their CEO than to the intern. A customer is warm and engaging with their peers, but dismissive toward the retail worker helping them. A friend who seems kind and generous suddenly snaps at a waiter because their order is wrong. These moments are not accidents. They are glimpses of who a person truly is. Because when there's no consequence for being dismissive, when there's no loss in being rude, that's when character is exposed. It's even more telling in situations of stress or frustration. When someone is running late and their barista fumbles their order, do they react with anger or patience? When a housekeeper in a hotel passes them in the hallway, do they acknowledge them, or do they walk by as if that person doesn't exist? How someone treats those who serve them isn't just about politeness, it's about their fundamental view of people. Do they see others as equals, as human beings worthy of the same respect they expect for themselves? Or do they believe respect is reserved for those who have something to offer them in return? Some of the best leaders, the most compassionate individuals, and the people who leave a true impact on others have a common trait. They lift up those who are often overlooked. They make conversation with the doorman. They ask the name of the person cleaning their office. They smile at the exhausted grocery store employee instead of treating them like a transaction. Not because they have to, not because anyone is watching, but because they understand that kindness isn't about status, it's about humanity. And the truth is, power is temporary. The roles we play, whether as a boss, a client, a customer, are fleeting. But the way we make people feel, that stays. People may forget what we said, but they will never forget how we treated them when they had nothing to give us. So if you want to know who someone truly is, don't look at how they treat those above them. Look at how they treat those society too often ignores. Because in those moments when there's no pressure, no reward, no expectation, character isn't just revealed. It is laid bare. Failure and criticism are two of the most uncomfortable experiences a person can face. No one enjoys being wrong, falling short, or hearing that they didn't measure up. But the way someone handles these moments reveals more about their character than their successes ever could. It's easy to be composed and confident when things are going well, when praise is flowing, and when life is on an upward trajectory. The real test comes when everything doesn't go according to plan. Some people crumble under failure. They make excuses, shift blame, or pretend it never happened. Others react with defensiveness to criticism, as if admitting fault would somehow make them less worthy. Instead of listening, they deflect. Instead of reflecting, they attack. They might point fingers, downplay their mistakes, or surround themselves with people who only tell them what they want to hear. But avoiding accountability doesn't erase failure, it only ensures they won't grow from it. Then there are those who see failure and criticism as opportunities. They don't enjoy them, no one does, but they don't run from them either. They sit with the discomfort, examine what went wrong, and take responsibility. These people understand that failure is not a verdict on their worth, but a doorway to learning. When someone calls them out on a mistake, they don't rush to defend themselves. They listen, they absorb. And even if it stings, they ask themselves, what can I take from this? The difference between these two types of people isn't intelligence, talent, or status. It's humility, it's self-awareness, it's the understanding that growth is impossible without discomfort. People who handle failure and criticism well know that mistakes don't define them, how they respond to them does. You can see this in real life all the time. A leader who takes responsibility for a bad decision instead of blaming their team gains respect, not loses it. A friend who can genuinely apologize instead of getting defensive strengthens their relationships instead of damaging them. A coworker who receives constructive feedback without resentment sets themselves up for long-term success. These are the people who earn trust because they show that they can be honest with themselves. On the other hand, the inability to handle failure often leads to deeper problems. When someone refuses to accept responsibility, they don't just avoid one difficult moment. They set themselves up for patterns of denial and stagnation. Relationships suffer when people can't own up to mistakes. Teams fall apart when leaders refuse to acknowledge bad calls. Growth stalls when someone is more focused on appearing right than actually improving. Handling failure well doesn't mean pretending it doesn't hurt. It doesn't mean agreeing with every piece of criticism or minimizing the sting of disappointment. It means being able to separate self-worth from mistakes. It means being open to the idea that there is always room to improve, always something to learn. The people who do this well aren't the ones who never fail, they're the ones who refuse to let failure be the end of the story. At the core of it all is resilience. The strongest people aren't those who never fall, but those who know how to get back up. They don't waste energy defending their ego. They don't let fear of failure keep them from taking risks. They know that every setback carries a lesson, and every piece of criticism, even the harsh ones, can teach them something valuable. So when you want to understand someone's character, don't just look at their achievements. Watch what they do when they fail. Watch how they react when they're criticized. Because in those moments when pride is on the line, when things didn't go as planned, that's when you see who they really are. Character isn't built in public. It's built in the quiet, unobserved moments when no one is there to give applause, offer rewards, or hold anyone accountable. It's easy to put on a good show when people are watching, to say the right things, and to act in ways that earn approval. But the real question is, what happens when there's no audience? What choices are made when there's no one to impress, no consequence for doing the wrong thing, and no immediate benefit for doing the right one? That's where true character lives. Some people operate as if integrity is only necessary when it's being measured. They follow the rules when someone is watching, but cut corners when they think no one will notice. They speak kindly in public, but are cruel behind closed doors. They show generosity when it gains them admiration, but act selfishly when there's nothing in it for them. Their morality is conditional based on who's around rather than on an internal sense of right and wrong. Then there are those whose actions don't change based on an audience. They do the right thing not because they have to, but because it's part of who they are. They treat people with respect whether or not they will be recognized for it. They follow through on promises even when no one would ever know if they didn't. They hold themselves to a standard that isn't dependent on external validation but on their own values. One of the clearest examples of this is how people handle power when they think no one is looking. How does a manager treat their employees when upper management isn't watching? How does a person talk about their friends when those friends aren't in the room? What does someone do with an opportunity to take advantage of a situation when they know there will be no consequences? These moments don't just reveal character, they define it. This also applies to personal discipline. It's easy to declare big goals and talk about ambition, but what actually happens in the small, daily choices? Does someone put in the work when no one is checking? Do they keep their commitments to themselves even when motivation fades? The people who succeed in the long run aren't just the ones who show up when it's convenient. They're the ones who stay consistent even when there's no external pressure to do so. Integrity is also reflected in the way people handle honesty. When given the chance to lie, even about something small, do they take it? Do they exaggerate their stories, manipulate details, or twist the truth when there's no one around to fact-check them? Honesty, when there's a risk of being caught, is one thing, but honesty, when there's no way to be exposed, is the real test. And then there's kindness, perhaps the greatest measure of all. The way someone treats those who have nothing to offer them when there's no social or professional advantage in being nice is one of the purest indicators of character. Do they pick up the trash that isn't theirs, hold the door for someone even when they're in a rush, or offer help without expecting anything in return? These small, unnoticed acts of goodness define a person far more than any grand, performative gestures ever could. What people do when no one is watching isn't just a reflection of who they are in private, it's a reflection of who they are at their core. Because character isn't built in the moments of recognition. It's built in the unseen, uncelebrated choices that shape who a person truly is.